The film begins and we see a desert where some people from a company have arrived. They want to extract oil from here, but their information was wrong because there was no oil. So they want to go back. The company sent a plane to transport them, and the pilot of the plane was named Frank. He has a co-pilot with him. They've come to transport them from here. After being seated on the plane, they were all ready to leave. Meanwhile, a big storm has approached. On the way, Frank's co-pilot asks him, "What do we need to do now?" Frank says, "If we go back, we'll have to wait for the fuel after going there, because we don't have enough fuel to take off the plane again." Frank takes his plane into the storm and flies it upward. The plane carries a heavy weight, and because of it, the sandstorm damages the plane's engine. Frank informs everyone that they must make an emergency landing. It wasn't easy to land because Frank couldn't see anything due to the storm. When he lands, the plane hits a rock. As a result, the tail side of the plane separates and one of the passengers falls off and dies while slipping into the desert. Their plane crashes. Later, they learn that 2 other passengers have also died. They remain in the plane because the storm is still raging outside. When the storm ends, they come out and see that their plane has been buried in the sand. After a while, their plane becomes visible, but they are trapped in the desert due to the storm. They have no other way to return. They check their food supplies and learn that they have enough for about a month. Meanwhile, a man tells Frank that he will go on foot. In reality, they must travel 200 miles to leave the desert. The man who wants to go says, "I frequently travel, so I can go on foot." The radio was also not working, and they needed help. Another man tells him, "Have you gone mad? This is July. Do you know how hot it is in the desert? You'll die." But the man isn't ready to listen to anyone. He says, "I'll travel at night." When Frank talks to him, he understands and quits his plan to travel. That night, a storm hits, and when a man gets up to go to the washroom, he falls because of the storm and calls for help. He screams for help, but no one hears him. In the morning, when everyone gets up, they notice a companion is missing. They look for him, but find no clue because he has been buried in the sand. Meanwhile, a girl from their group approaches Frank. She asks him, "Will anyone come to save us? How much chance is there that someone will come?" Frank tells her, "We're standing in the middle of the desert. I don't think anyone will find this location. There's limited access to radio signals, and we have a small amount of food. If we travel on foot, our food will be consumed in 2 days. All we can do is wait." Their hopes begin to fade as they doubt anyone will come to save them. 2 men from the group decide to leave and want to carry water. Frank tells them, "You can't take the water." A fight breaks out, and as a result, the water spills. Then a man named Elliot from their group comes forward and tells them he has an idea to save their lives. He suggests that they can build a new plane from the broken one. Frank asks, "What do you know about planes?" Elliot responds, "I used to design planes." Actually, no. One knows much about Elliot, who he is or where he came from, because he only recently joined the company and has spent little time with them. Everyone is surprised by Elliot, but they agree to follow him. Frank, however, is not convinced, knowing it's impossible. The next morning, another man has disappeared, and the girl from their group says she will go look for him. But Frank stops her and says he will go alone. He reaches the place where the plane hit the rock and finds the dead body of the missing man stripped of clothing and with bullet wounds. Another man arrives and says, "I think looters came here and took his clothes and everything." Frank tells him to leave. Meanwhile, one of the group members asks Frank why he doesn't allow them to build the plane. Frank replies, "Why give people false hope when I know the plane cannot be made?" The other man says we can give them hope because the world runs on hope after hearing him. Frank agrees to try building the plane. They return to the rest of the group and start working on the plane at night. Because it was too hot during the day, their trouble increased when one day while welding, sparks accidentally fell onto the fuel they had stored for burning. The fire ruined the entire fuel supply. They were left with a small amount of fuel, so they decided to work during the day instead of at night. They had to connect a wing of the plane as they were manufacturing a new plane from the old one. They lifted the wing upward with the help of a chain because they didn't have a crane, and they gradually started connecting the wing. Meanwhile, the chain broke while they were connecting the wing. A man inside the plane came out and told everyone that the wing had been connected, and now their plane was almost built. They hoped they could finally leave, and everyone started to dance. They were enjoying themselves and clearing away the sand to make a path for their plane. But this wasn't easy. One day a lightning storm hit, and everyone was running for cover. But Elliot didn't leave because he didn't want his plane to be damaged, as he had put a lot of effort into it. Frank came and pushed him away, saving Elliot because he didn't want him to be harmed. What would happen to the plane if something happened to Elliot? They named the plane Phoenix, and there was still a lot of work left to do. One night, they saw some people through a microscope sleeping in tents. They were smugglers known as desert looters who preyed on people who passed through the area. Frank's companions didn't know about them. Frank told them to seek the looters' help in obtaining water despite Elliot's warnings. Ignoring him, Frank took a few companions to get water. When they approached, the smugglers attacked, killing one of Frank's friends, and a fight broke out. The smugglers were killed, but one of their friends fled. Frank was about to kill him, but decided against it and brought him back to the group. Everyone wanted to kill the man, but Frank stopped them. Elliot, however, killed him upon arriving, and Frank rebuked him harshly. Elliot blamed Frank for everything, saying, "We could have been saved because you were the pilot, but you didn't do your job." Frank became angry, punched Elliot, and he fell down. Elliot was furious, feeling humiliated in front of everyone. He angrily said, "I won't make the plane anymore. I've been working hard alone and you don't even help." A girl from their group approached Elliot and begged him, "Please, how can we work without you? We can't do this without you." Elliot then set a condition. If Frank apologized, he would work with them. Frank apologized, and one day, while looking through their microscope, they saw that the smuggler who had fled had returned with his men. They didn't attack as Frank and his companions had taken their guns. The smugglers knew the group had little food left and were waiting for them to run out before attacking. On the other hand, the group was working with enthusiasm. One day, Frank found a book with model planes. Later, they learned that Elliot's experience was with small-scale models. He made toy planes for kids though they could fly. Everyone realized this, and one man became furious, saying, "How long have you been fooling us? This plane is never going to fly, and you've never built such a big plane before." He pointed a gun at Elliot's head, but Elliot said, "Trust me, this plane will fly." Frank stopped the man from shooting Elliot. A storm hit, and their plane, built with great effort, gradually began to lift off. They realized that the plane could actually fly, and their hopes were renewed. After the storm passed, they were momentarily discouraged, but Frank reassured them that the plane would take off. They cleared the plane from the sand and moved it to a place with no sand. The plane took off, but after a while, it stopped. Then the engine restarted. Hearing the engine's sound, the smugglers who had been hiding appeared. They had been waiting for a long time to smuggle them. They rode on horses, armed with guns, intending to kill them. The group climbed onto the plane and held on tightly. There wasn't much space on the plane, so they had to hang on to it. The plane gradually moved forward, and the looters shot at them, but their bullets didn't hit. Afterward, the plane plunged into a ditch. The smugglers believed the group had died, but suddenly, their phoenix soared into the sky. They were overjoyed, realizing that they had succeeded after weeks of struggle. They had escaped the desert in this way. In the final scene, we see images of some of the survivors contacting their families. We learn that Frank started his own airline company, which he named Filmix. As for Elliot, how could anyone forget him? He was the reason everyone was saved. His picture was published in a newspaper with the word NASA, indicating that he now worked for NASA. In this way, they all enjoyed a happy life. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this.